The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep rumble that echoed through the vast hall. Kehoe walked forward, his small human frame looking tiny against the enormous space around him. Behind him, Yun-Su carried a metal briefcase that contained everything humanity had prepared for this moment. The chamber was filled with beings that looked nothing like humans. Tall insect-like creatures with 4 arms and glowing eyes sat in the front rows. Their chittering voices sounded like clicking metal. Next to them were beings made of living crystal, their bodies reflecting light in rainbow colors. Above them floated cloud-like entities that spoke in musical tones that hurt human ears. Kehoe had practiced his speech 100 times. He had dreamed of this day for months. Today, humanity would finally join the Intergalactic Defense Corps. Today, they would prove they belonged among the stars. The council chairman, a creature called Veltharion, looked down at Kehoe. Veltharion was 12 feet tall, with skin that looked like polished stone and eyes that glowed like small suns. When he spoke, his voice boomed through the chamber. "The human delegation may present their petition," Veltharion announced. Kehoe stepped forward to the speaking platform. The platform was made for much larger beings, so he had to use a small step stool that made him feel even smaller. He cleared his throat and began, "Honored council members, I come before you today representing the people of Earth and the Terran Federation. We have lived in peace with the galaxy for 50 years. We have traded fairly with all species. We have shared our knowledge and culture. Now we ask to serve alongside you in defending our shared space." A sound like laughter came from the insect beings. It sounded harsh and mocking. One of them, whose name tag read General Zixmore, stood up on his 4 legs. "Humans want to fight?" General Zixmore's voice was like nails on glass. "Look at them. They have no claws, no armor plating, no acid sacs. They cannot even see in proper light spectrums." More laughter came from different parts of the chamber. Kehoe felt his face grow hot. But he continued, "We may not have natural weapons, but we have other qualities. We are quick learners. We adapt. Well, we work together as a team." A crystal being named Resonant Prime made a sound like breaking glass. "Humans are soft. Humans break easily. In the last war against the Kethamori, we lost 3 billion warriors. What could humans do that we could not?" Yun-Su watched from the side of the chamber. His job was to provide military information if needed. He had served in the Terran Defense Forces for 20 years. He knew what humans could do in a fight, but nobody here wanted to listen. In the observation deck above, Da-Un sat with other junior diplomats and scientists. She was supposed to be taking notes, but she found herself watching the faces of the council members. Most looked amused or bored, but there was one face that looked different. General Krixmak of the Torvani Empire sat in the warrior section. His people were known as fierce fighters. They had conquered 12 star systems before joining the council. Unlike the others, he was not laughing. His scarred face looked thoughtful as he studied Kehoe. Kehoe opened his briefcase and pulled out a data pad. "We have prepared detailed military assessments. Our population can provide over 2 billion soldiers. Our industrial capacity can produce ships and weapons. Our scientists have developed new technologies." Veltharion raised one massive hand for silence. "The chair will now call for preliminary discussion." What followed was not really a discussion. It was more like a comedy show, with humans as the joke. Speaker after speaker stood up to explain why humans were useless for military service. "They have no natural armor," said a turtle-like being called Defense Minister Gorok. "One hit from a plasma cannon would turn them to dust. They cannot survive in most atmospheric conditions," added Admiral Shylon, whose gills fluttered as she spoke. "They need special suits just to breathe on 60% of known worlds." "Their reaction time is pathetic," laughed Commander Rexthul. "My species can process information 15 times faster than humans." Kehoe tried to respond to each point, but nobody wanted to listen. Every time he started to speak, someone else would interrupt with another reason why humans were weak. The worst part was that some of what they said was true. Humans did need environmental suits on many worlds. They did not have natural weapons or armor. They were not the fastest or strongest species in the galaxy. But Kehoe knew there was more to fighting than just being big and strong. He had studied every major war in galactic history. He had seen how tactics and strategy could win battles that seemed impossible. He wanted to tell them about human history, about how his people had fought and survived on a dangerous world for thousands of years. Nobody gave him the chance. After 2 hours of insults disguised as discussion, Veltharion called for a vote. All in favor of accepting humanity into the Intergalactic Defense Corps? Not a single hand, claw, or tentacle was raised. All opposed? Every member of the council voted against humanity. Veltharion's voice boomed through the silent chamber. By unanimous decision of this council, humans are hereby banned from all military operations within galactic space. Your species lacks the physical capabilities, mental fortitude, and technological advancement required for interstellar warfare. Kehoe felt something break inside his chest. 50 years of peace. Decades of proving humanity could be trusted. All the hope and preparation for this moment. None of it mattered. Furthermore, Veltharion continued, human vessels are restricted to trade routes and civilian sectors. Any human ship found in military zones will be considered a violation of galactic law. The session was over. Kehoe gathered his unused materials and walked toward the exit. Yunsu fell into step beside him, his face hard as stone. As they left the chamber, Daun noticed that General Krixmak was still watching them. While every other council member was already talking about other business, the old warrior's eyes followed the human delegation until they disappeared through the doors. Outside the chamber, Kehoe stopped walking. His hands were shaking. 50 years, he whispered to Yunsu. We waited 50 years for this. Yunsu put a hand on his friend's shoulder. Maybe it's better this way. Kehoe looked at him with surprise. Better? How can you say that? Yunsu was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that would stay with Kehoe forever. Because they have no idea what we really are. 6 months had passed since the council's decision. On Earth, life continued as normal. People went to work, children went to school, and the news barely mentioned the ban anymore. Most humans had accepted that they would remain traders and diplomats, while others handled the fighting. Taman was piloting his cargo ship through the Proxima Kepler system when everything changed. He was carrying medical supplies from Earth to a colony world, the same boring route he had flown 100 times before. His ship, the Lucky Dragon, was small and slow, but it was reliable. He was drinking coffee and reading messages from his family when his sensors started screaming. The first thing he saw was the size of it. The alien ship was bigger than anything Taman had ever imagined. It was dark, almost black, with a surface that seemed to swallow light. Strange growths covered its hull like tumors on diseased skin. As he watched in shock, more ships just like it appeared out of nowhere. This is cargo vessel Lucky Dragon, Taman spoke into his radio. I am detecting unknown vessels in Proxima Kepler. Please respond. Static filled his radio for several seconds. Then a voice came through filled with terror. This is Kepler Station. We are under attack. Unknown hostile forces are destroying everything. They came out of nowhere. They're not responding to any communication. Through his ship's cameras, Taemin watched the station explode. One moment it was there, a massive structure that housed 50,000 people. The next moment there was nothing but empty space. Not even debris remained. The dark ships moved like living things. They flowed through space instead of flying through it. Taemin had never seen anything move like that. It was wrong somehow, like watching something that should not exist. More voices came through the radio. Colony ships screaming for help. Defense platforms reporting impossible sensor readings. Then, one by one, the voices went silent. Taemin turned his ship around and flew back toward the jump gate as fast as his engines could manage. He had to warn someone. He had to tell people what he had seen. On Earth, Wu Jin was sitting in his office when the first reports arrived. As Terran Defense Minister, he received updates from all human colonies and trading posts. What he read made his blood run cold. Sir, his assistant knocked on the door. We have emergency communications coming in from 12 different systems. They're all saying the same thing. Wu Jin looked at the reports spread across his desk. Proxima Kepler, gone. New Shanghai colony, gone. The mining station at Ross 248, gone. Whatever was attacking moved fast and left nothing behind. His daughter So Young burst into his office without knocking. She worked as a tactical analyst for the Terran Defense Forces, even though they were not allowed to actually defend anything. "Dad, you need to see this," she said, spreading star charts across his desk. "I've been tracking the attack patterns. Look at this." So Young pointed to red marks on the star map. Each mark showed where an attack had happened. At first they looked random, but as Wu Jin studied them, he began to see a pattern. "They're not just attacking randomly," So Young explained. "They're cutting off specific trade routes. They're isolating military bases from supply lines. They're dividing the galaxy into sections." "That's impossible," Wu Jin said. "No species attacks like that. Random raiders go for easy targets. Organized armies make demands first." "These aren't raiders, and they're not an army," So Young said quietly. "Dad, I think there's something else entirely." Across the galaxy, the Galactic Defense Corps was mobilizing. The news networks showed massive fleets gathering at strategic points. The proud Vextari launched their warrior prince battle groups, each one containing 1,000 ships. The crystalline helix beings powered up their reality-bending weapons that could fold space itself. The Nulvar began sacrificing entire gas giant colonies to fuel their war machines. General Krixmak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Tooth. Around him, his warriors prepared for battle with the excitement of his species. The Torvani loved war, and they were good at it. They had never lost a major battle. "Reports from the front lines, General," his aide announced. Krixmak read the reports with growing confusion. The enemy ships moved in ways that made no sense. They appeared and disappeared without using jump drives. They seemed to know exactly where defender ships would be before those ships had even decided where to go. "Send word to all battle groups," Krixmak ordered. "Use Pattern 7 attack formation. Hit them with everything we have." The Battle of Kepler Prime lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the entire Torvani Third Fleet was gone. Not destroyed, gone. The ships had simply vanished along with their crews. Krixmak barely escaped in a damaged escape pod. The same thing happened everywhere. The Vextari warrior princes, with all their pride and advanced weapons, were swept aside like insects. The Helix beings' reality-bending technology had no effect on enemies that seemed to exist outside of normal space. The Nulvar's massive war machines were consumed like everything else. On the news networks, panic began to spread. For the first time in galactic history, the great military powers were losing. Not just losing battles, but being completely destroyed. Tai Min finally reached Earth after a week of jumping through safe systems. He went straight to the Defense Ministry and told them everything he had seen. Wu Jin listened to his report with a sinking heart. "You're sure there was nothing left?" Wu Jin asked. "No debris? No energy signatures?" "Nothing," Tai Min confirmed. It was like the station had never existed at all. So Young had been working around the clock, analyzing every piece of data from the battle zones. What she found scared her more than the attacks themselves. "Dad, I've figured out their pattern," she said during an emergency meeting. "They're not trying to conquer the galaxy. They're consuming it." She pulled up a holographic display that showed the galaxy with infected zones marked in black. "Look at this. Every system they hit becomes empty space. Not destroyed, empty. Like reality itself is being deleted." Wu Jin stared at the display. The black zones were growing bigger every day. "How long do we have?" So Young ran some calculations on her computer. At their current rate of expansion, they'll reach the core worlds in 8 months, Earth in 10 months. And the Defense Corps? They've lost 60% of their total forces, So Young said quietly. Every battle group they send gets wiped out completely. Their tactics aren't working, their weapons aren't working. Nothing is working. Wu Jin walked to his window and looked out at the city below. People were going about their normal lives, not knowing that something was eating the galaxy around them. He thought about the Council's decision 6 months ago. Humans were too weak to fight, they had said. Humans couldn't contribute to galactic defense. He opened a secure communication channel to his top military commanders. Operation Quiet Storm is now active, he said. Begin immediate mobilization of all defense assets. Sir, one of his generals, asked, we're still banned from military operations if the Council finds out. The Council has bigger problems right now, Wu Jin interrupted. Besides, they said we couldn't join their defense corps. They never said we couldn't defend ourselves. Within hours, human ships began moving throughout Terran space. Not the slow cargo vessels that everyone was used to seeing, but fast, dark ships that had been hidden in asteroid belts and gas giant atmospheres for decades. So Young watched the deployment from the command center. Dad, are you sure about this? Wu Jin put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. The galaxy is about to learn something they should have known 50 years ago. What's that? Humans don't fight wars the way everyone else does. The messages from the Galactic Council came every day now, each one more desperate than the last. He-Jin read them in her new office as Earth's interim ambassador. Ki-Ho had been recalled after the military ban, and now she had the job nobody wanted. Ambassador, the latest message began. The Council requests immediate industrial support from the Terran Federation. We need medical supplies, food processors, and manufacturing equipment. Time is critical. He-Jin noticed what the message did not say. No mention of military aid. No request for human soldiers or ships. Just supplies and equipment. Even now, when their great fleets were being destroyed, the Council still saw humans as useful only for carrying things. Another message came from the Vextari Empire. Honored Ambassador, we require civilian transport, vessels to evacuate our colonies. Human ships are known for their reliability in dangerous conditions. A third message from the Crystal Beings. We need human engineers to work on supply lines. Your species is good at fixing things that are broken. Hyojin saved all the messages but did not reply immediately. There was something happening on Earth that the galaxy did not know about yet. Deep beneath the city of New Geneva, in a facility that did not appear on any public maps, General Jun-Ho was giving the most important briefing of his career. The KAF room was small and plain with concrete walls and simple metal chairs. The people sitting in those chairs, however, were anything but simple. Ladies and gentlemen, Jun-Ho began, today I'm going to tell you why humanity has never shown its true face to the galaxy. The audience included So Young, several other military analysts, and a few select politicians. Jun-Ho pressed a button, and the lights dimmed. A holographic display showed a peaceful planet with green oceans and white clouds. This is Kepler 438b, Jun-Ho said. Beautiful world, rich in resources, perfect climate. The Helix beings colonized it 300 years ago. The image changed to show crystal cities gleaming in sunlight. They lived there in peace for centuries. No wars, no conflicts, no violence of any kind. Jun-Ho pressed another button. Now the display showed a harsh red planet with violent storms and toxic atmospheres. This is Earth, 4,000 years ago. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, deadly animals, poisonous plants, and humans fighting each other for scraps of food. So Young had heard parts of this before, but seeing it laid out like this made her stomach feel sick. Every species in the galaxy evolved on worlds like Kepler 438b, Jun-Ho continued. Peaceful worlds, safe worlds, worlds where cooperation meant survival. But Earth was different. On Earth, everything wanted to kill everything else, including us. The display showed images from human history, ancient battles with spears and shields, medieval sieges with catapults and arrows, modern wars with tanks and airplanes. We didn't just fight nature, Jun-Ho said. We fought ourselves. For thousands of years, we perfected the art of killing other humans. Nari, the human psychologist, stood up to speak. She was small and quiet, but her words carried weight. What General Jun-Ho is trying to explain is that humans develop differently from every other species. When other races faced problems, they built better tools or worked together. When humans faced problems, we learned to destroy whatever was causing the problem. She pulled up brain scans on the display. Human brains are wired for conflict. We see patterns that other species miss. We think in terms of threats and advantages. We plan for disasters that may never happen. It's not just how we think, it's who we are. One of the politicians, a man named Kyung-soo, raised his hand. But we've been peaceful for over a century. We've proven we can change. Junho's laugh was bitter. Have we? Or have we just been hiding what we are? He pressed another button, and the display showed footage from something called the Siege of New Geneva. The date stamp showed it was from 200 years ago, during one of Earth's last civil wars. This battle took place right above where we're sitting now, Junho said. I want you to watch this carefully. The footage showed a city surrounded by enemy forces. The attackers had better weapons, more soldiers, and complete air superiority. By any reasonable calculation, the city should have fallen in days. Instead, it held for 3 months. So Young watched in fascination as the defenders turned every disadvantage into an advantage. When they ran out of ammunition, they built traps. When their vehicles were destroyed, they used the wreckage to block enemy movement. When their communication systems failed, they developed a system of signals using mirrors and flags that was actually more effective than radio. The defending commander was a man named Myung-ho, Junho said. He had 12,000 soldiers against 200,000 attackers. Military theory said it was impossible to win. But Myung-ho didn't think like a military theorist. He thought like a human. The footage showed Myung-ho in a planning meeting. He looked calm, almost bored, as he discussed tactics that seemed insane. Letting the enemy capture certain areas so they could be trapped. Pretending to retreat so the enemy would advance into killing zones. Using the enemy's own supply lines against them. Watch his face, Nari said quietly. This is what scares me about our species. For him, this isn't war. This is a puzzle. The most disturbing part wasn't the tactics themselves. It was how easily they came to Myung-ho and his officers. They discussed complex strategies while eating lunch. They planned ambushes that would kill thousands of people with the same tone they might use to plan a garden party. This is what we hide from the galaxy, Junho said as the footage ended. Not that we're violent. Every species can be violent when threatened. What we hide is that we're good at it. Too good. Dong-hyun, the officer who had recorded the original footage, spoke up. The really scary part is that the Siege of New Geneva was considered a minor battle. There were hundreds of conflicts like this in human history. Some were much worse. So Young felt a chill run down her spine. How much worse? The Battle of Stalingrad lasted 230 days, Dong-hyun said. Over 2 million casualties. The Siege of Sarajevo lasted nearly 4 years. The 30 Years' War killed 1/3 of the population of Central Europe. And these were humans fighting other humans, added Nari. Imagine what we could do to species that have never seen real war. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Kyung-soo asked the question everyone was thinking. So what do we do now? Junho looked around the room at each person. The Void Spawn, or whatever they're called, have destroyed 70% of the galaxy's military forces. Every battle group the aliens send gets wiped out completely. Their tactics don't work. Their weapons don't work. Their way of thinking about war doesn't work, but our way might, So Young said quietly. Our way definitely will, Junho corrected. The question is whether we want to show the galaxy what we really are. Hye-jin had been listening to everything through a secure communication link. Now she spoke up from her office on the surface. What choice do we have? If these Void Spawn win, there won't be a galaxy left to worry about. Nari shook her head. You don't understand. Once we reveal what humans can do in a war, we can never go back. The other species will never look at us the same way. They'll be afraid of us forever. Maybe they should be, Junho said grimly. So Young was studying the latest tactical reports from the battle zones. Dad's already started mobilizing our hidden fleets. The question is whether we tell the council what we're doing. Not yet, Junho decided. Let's see what humans can do against these Void Spawn first. If we can actually fight them effectively, then we'll show the galaxy our footage. Hye-jin closed her eyes and thought about the choice they were making. For 50 years, humans had pretended to be just another peaceful species. They had hidden their true nature, their history, their capabilities. Now they might have to reveal everything. There's something else you need to consider, she said finally. If we do this, if we show them what we are, some species might decide we're more dangerous than the void spawn. The room fell silent again. Everyone understood what she meant. The galaxy might unite against humanity instead of against the real threat. That's a risk we'll have to take, Junho said. Because if we don't act, there won't be a galaxy left to unite against anyone. The emergency signal came at 3 a.m, Earth time. Sang-min was pulled from his sleep by the insistent beeping of his secure communication device. As Earth's defense coordinator, he was used to late-night calls, but this one was different. The voice on the other end was Chairman Veltharion himself, and he sounded broken. Coordinator Sang-min, the great alien leader's voice cracked with desperation. The core worlds are under attack. We have lost contact with 17 major systems in the past 48 hours. Our finest battle groups are gone. Everything is gone. Sang-min sat up in his bed, fully awake now. What do you need, Chairman? There was a long pause. Then Veltharion said something that would have been unthinkable just months ago. Anything. Any assistance your people can provide. We are losing this war. Sang-min looked out his bedroom window at the sleeping city below. Soon, those people might be the only ones left alive in the galaxy. I'll contact my government immediately. After the call ended, Sang-min sat in the dark for several minutes. Then he made another call, this one to Ji-eun, the human military historian who had been waiting for this moment her entire career. It's time, he said simply. Ji-eun had spent decades preparing for this conversation. She had studied every piece of classified footage, every restricted battle report, every hidden piece of human military history. She knew that someday, the galaxy would need to see what humans really were. She just hoped they would survive the revelation. 3 hours later, Ji-eun stood in the same underground facility where Junho had given his briefing. But this time, the audience was different. Through secure holographic communication, every member of the Galactic Council was present virtually, their alien forms flickering in the dim light. Chairman Veltharion looked exhausted. His stone-like skin had cracks in it, and his glowing eyes had dimmed to barely visible sparks. Around him, the other council members looked equally defeated. General Krixmak sat with his head in his hands. The crystal beings flickered weakly, their usual bright colors faded to dull gray. Honored council members, Ji-eun began, you have asked for human assistance in your war against the void spawn. Before we can help you, there is something you must understand about my species. She activated the holographic display, and the room filled with the image of Earth as it looked 200 years ago. Cities in ruins, armies marching across continents, the scars of a world that had known nothing but war for thousands of years. For 50 years we have hidden our true nature from you, Ji-eun continued. We have pretended to be just another peaceful species. We have let you believe that we are weak, harmless, suitable only for trade and diplomacy. Veltharion leaned forward. What are you saying? Instead of answering directly, Ji-eun activated another file. The words, classified, Siege of New Geneva, appeared in the air. What you are about to see, she said, is footage from one of humanity's smaller conflicts. It is classified not because it shows our military capabilities, but because it shows how we think about war. The footage began to play. The assembled aliens watched as a human city came under siege by vastly superior forces. They saw 12,000 defenders facing 200,000 attackers. They saw weapons and vehicles that were primitive by galactic standards. By every reasonable measure, it should have been a massacre. Then they saw Myung-ho, the human commander, appeared on screen, sitting calmly in a bombed-out building that served as his headquarters. Around him, his officers discussed their situation with the same tone they might use to plan a dinner party. The enemy has complete air superiority, one officer reported. They can bomb any position we try to hold. Good, Myung-ho replied, making notes on a paper map. Let them think we're afraid of their aircraft. Set up fake positions on the high buildings. Make them waste ammunition on empty rooms. General Kriegsmark stared at the screen in disbelief. Myung-ho was treating overwhelming air superiority as an advantage for his own forces. The footage continued. The aliens watched as the human defenders turned every disadvantage into a trap. When the enemy cut their supply lines, they had already prepared hidden supply caches. When the enemy surrounded the city, they used the encirclement to control exactly where the attacks would come from. Phase 3 begins tomorrow, Myung-ho announced to his staff. The enemy believes they have us trapped. Time to show them what trapped really means. The aliens watched in growing horror as the humans implemented their plan. They had spent weeks letting the enemy think they were winning, drawing more and more forces into the city. Now those forces found themselves in a maze of prepared kill zones, false retreats, and coordinated ambushes. But the most disturbing part wasn't the tactics themselves. It was the casual way the humans discussed them. Casualties for today? Myung-ho asked during one evening briefing. We lost 43, an officer reported. Enemy lost approximately 8,000. Acceptable ratio, Myung-ho replied, then immediately moved on to discussing the next day's operations. He showed no emotion about the deaths, either his own, people, or the enemy. It was just mathematics to him. The council members were completely silent now. They were watching something they had never seen before. War as practiced by a species that had evolved specifically to excel at it. The siege footage showed 3 months compressed into 30 minutes. 3 months of the attacking force being slowly destroyed by defenders who seemed to predict their every move. 3 months of tactical brilliance that turned an impossible situation into inevitable victory. When it ended, the room remained silent for a full minute. Finally, Veltharion spoke, his voice barely a whisper. This was considered a minor conflict? Ji-un nodded. The Siege of New Geneva doesn't even appear in most human history books. It was a small engagement during a civil war that lasted only 8 years. Only 8 years? The crystal being called Resonant Prime's voice was like breaking glass. Our species has never fought a war that lasted longer than 6 months. Most human wars lasted decades, Ji-un said quietly. Some lasted centuries. We have been fighting each other continuously for over 5,000 years. General Kriegsmark, the only warrior among the council members, was shaking visibly. The tactical coordination, the psychological warfare, the long-term planning. This is impossible. No species thinks this way. Every human thinks this way. Ji-un corrected. What you just saw was not the work of a military genius. Myung-ho was considered an average commander by human standards. The tactics he used are taught to human children as basic strategy games. The implications hit the council like a physical blow. If this was average for humans, what could their best commanders do? Sangmin's voice came through the communication system. Council members, what you have just seen is why humanity chose to hide our nature when we joined galactic civilization. We were tired of war. We wanted peace. But we never forgot how to fight. Chairman Veltharion looked around at his fellow council members. Every face showed the same expression. Terror, mixed with desperate hope. What do you need from us? He asked finally. The answer came not from Sangmin or Ji-un, but from a new voice. Chang Ho, Earth's Prime Minister, appeared on the communication channel. Just lift the ban, he said simply. We've been ready since the day you implemented it. In the council chambers on Galactic Central, the emergency session was called immediately. The debate lasted only minutes. For the first time in galactic history, a unanimous vote was overturned by an even more unanimous emergency vote. The ban on human military participation was officially lifted, but as the council members signed the authorization, each of them wondered the same thing. In trying to save the galaxy, had they just unleashed something even more dangerous than the void spawn? Ji-un closed the classified files and looked around the room. The footage was sealed again, but she knew it would not stay secret much longer. Once humans began fighting, the galaxy would see exactly what her species was capable of. She just hoped they would still have allies when the war was over. The Galactic Council chambers had never been so quiet. The emergency session to discuss lifting the human military ban had ended, but nobody had left. They all sat in their seats, staring at the empty space where the forbidden footage had played. Insu, the human technical officer who had operated the display equipment, was calmly packing up his gear. His movements were slow and precise, and the soft sounds of equipment being stored seemed unnaturally loud in the silence. Finally, he looked up at the assembled aliens and spoke in a conversational tone that somehow made his words more terrifying. "I should mention," Insu said, adjusting his glasses, "what you just watched was recorded with primitive equipment 200 years ago. The siege of New Geneva is considered a minor engagement in human military history. The forces involved were local militia, not professional soldiers, and the tactics used are taught to 12-year-old children in our schools as basic strategy exercises." A sound like grinding stone came from Chairman Veltharion. How minor?" Insu consulted. "A data pad. It ranks approximately 7,432nd on the list of significant human battles. The Battle of Stalingrad, which lasted 8 months, involved over 4 million soldiers. The siege of Leningrad lasted 900 days. The 100 Years' War between England and France lasted, well, more than 100 years, actually. General Kriegsmark, despite being from the most warlike species in the galaxy, was visibly trembling. His scarred hands gripped the arms of his chair so tightly that the metal was bending. "You said these were taught to children?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Basic tactical principles, yes," Insu replied. "Human children play games that simulate military campaigns. They solve puzzles that involve logistics, supply lines, and casualty management. By age 10, most human children can plan a siege defense better than your average galactic military commander." The crystal being called Resonant Prime made a sound, like shattering glass. "But you have been at peace for over a century. Surely your people have forgotten these abilities." Yun-Kyung entered the chamber at that moment. She was the new human military liaison, recently appointed to coordinate with galactic forces. She walked to the center of the room with quiet confidence, her footsteps echoing in the silence. "We have been at peace," she confirmed. "It has been the longest period without warfare in recorded human history. 123 years, 4 months, and 16 days. "Then your military knowledge is outdated," insisted Admiral Shylon, her gills fluttering nervously. "Your weapons are old. Your tactics are from a different era." Yun-Kyung smiled, and that smile made every alien in the room uncomfortable. "Admiral, let me ask you something. If you had a tiger in a cage for 100 years and you fed it well and kept it comfortable, would you assume it had forgotten how to hunt?" The room grew even quieter, if that was possible. "Furthermore," Yun-Kyung continued, "our peace was not the result of forgetting how to fight. It was the result of becoming too good at it. We stopped fighting each other because we had perfected the art of war to the point where any conflict would have destroyed our entire species." Chang Ho's image appeared on the main communication screen. Earth's Prime Minister looked tired, but his voice was steady and calm. "Council members," he said, "I know what you're thinking. You're wondering if you've made a terrible mistake. You're wondering if humans might be more dangerous than the void spawn." Several aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. That was exactly what they were thinking. "Let me put your minds at ease," Chang Ho continued. "We don't want to conquer the galaxy. We don't want to rule over other species. We just want to survive, same as you. The difference is that we're very, very good at surviving." The main doors of the chamber opened and Yejin entered. She was young for a fleet commander, probably in her 30s by human standards. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations or medals. She looked like she could be anyone's daughter or sister. She was also, according to the datapad Insu had been reading, the most dangerous military commander in galactic space. "Council members," Yejin said, her voice cheerful and friendly. "I've just received word that the Void Spawn have reached the Vega system. They'll be at the core worlds within 72 hours. Veltharion leaned forward desperately. "Can you stop them? Can your people actually fight these things?" Yejin tilted her head slightly as if considering a question about the weather. "Oh, we're not going to fight them. The silence that followed was deafening. "What?" General Kricksmack managed to croak. "Fighting implies that both sides have a chance. To win," Yejin explained patiently, "what we're going to do is exterminate them. There's a difference." She pulled out a small device and activated a holographic display. The galaxy appeared in miniature with red dots showing void spawn positions and blue dots showing human fleet positions. The aliens stared in shock. Blue dots surrounded every single red dot. "How is this possible?" whispered Resonant Prime. "We've been tracking their movements constantly. They appear and disappear without warning. How did you position your ships?" Yejin's smile widened. "We didn't position our ships around their current locations. We positioned them around where they were going to be." "But that's impossible," Admiral Shylon protested. "They move randomly. There's no pattern to predict." "Everything has a pattern," Yejin said gently. "You just have to know how to look for it. The void spawn aren't random. They're following a consumption algorithm designed for maximum efficiency. Once we figured out their programming, predicting their movements became simple." Insu looked up from his equipment. "We solved their movement pattern in the first week of attacks. We've been tracking them ever since, waiting for authorization to engage." The implications sank in slowly. While the galactic military had been throwing fleet after fleet against an unpredictable enemy, humans had been quietly studying, learning, and preparing. They had known how to beat the void spawn for months. "Why didn't you tell us?" Veltharion asked desperately. "You banned us from military operations," Yun Kyung reminded him. "We offered to help 6 months ago. You said we were too weak and too stupid to be useful." Chang Ho's voice came through the communication system again. "But we're not vindictive people. We don't hold grudges. We're going to save the galaxy anyway." Yejin checked a timer on her wrist. "In fact, we should be getting the first reports in about 30 seconds. She counted down quietly. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A communication officer burst into the chamber. "Chairman, we're receiving reports from all sectors. The void spawn fleets are under attack. They're being destroyed." More reports flooded in over the next few minutes. Every void spawn position was being simultaneously attacked by human forces. The creatures that had seemed unstoppable were being methodically eliminated. "Status report from the Vega system," the communication officer announced. "Human forces have completed cleanup operations. All hostile entities destroyed. Casualty report, 0 friendly losses." General Kricksmack stared at the holographic display in disbelief. 0 losses? Against an enemy that destroyed our entire fleet? "Different tactics," Yejin explained simply. "You fought them the way you fight other species, with honor and bravery and dramatic battles. We fought them the way humans fight, to win." The chamber remained silent as more reports came in. System after system reported successful human operations against the void spawn. What had seemed like an unstoppable invasion was being systematically dismantled. Finally, Veltharion found his voice. "How long will it take to clear the entire galaxy?" Yejin consulted her timer again. "We should be finished in approximately 6 hours and 43 minutes, unless they have more ships than we calculated, in which case it might take 7 hours. The casual way she discussed the destruction of a galaxy-threatening enemy made everyone in the room uncomfortable. This was not how wars were supposed to work. Wars were supposed to be dramatic, desperate struggles between evenly matched forces. This was more like extermination. "What happens now?" asked Admiral Shylon quietly. Chang Ho's image flickered on the screen again. Now we go back to being peaceful traders and diplomats. We return to our quiet lives on our quiet worlds. We pretend this never happened. But everyone will know," protested Resonant Prime. "The galaxy will know what humans can do." "Yes," Chang Ho agreed. "They will. And hopefully that will be enough to ensure that we never have to do it again." Yun Kyung gathered her materials and prepared to leave. "The authorization documents for ongoing human military cooperation are on your desks. Sign them if you want. Don't sign them if you prefer to handle future crises yourselves." As the humans filed out of the chamber, Yejin paused at the door and turned back to the assembled aliens. For what it's worth, she said, we really do prefer peace. War is just something we're good at when we have no other choice. Then she was gone, and the council members were left alone with their thoughts and their fears. In the silence that followed, Chairman Veltharion realized that everything had changed. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. More importantly, humans would never look at themselves the same way again. They had tried to hide their nature to pretend they were just another peaceful species. But when the galaxy needed them,